Chapter 29-28. The other party's strength should have just reached Purple Realm level 5. After fighting for so long, they're starting to show signs of fatigue. If this goes on, their lives might be in danger. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the situation not far away and made a judgment. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were looking ahead, the two people who were exhausted from dealing with the aquamarine brambles noticed them approaching. Excitement surfaced on their faces, and they immediately asked Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three for help. "Friends, please help us. These aquamarine brambles love to feed on human flesh. As soon as they discover a human passing by, they'll attack in groups. Why don't we work together to get rid of these aquamarine brambles? It won't be bad for you." The two people looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three anxiously, hoping that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could help. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three looked at each other, feeling conflicted. They had some information about the aquamarine brambles, but they only knew about their strength and did not know much about their temperament. In fact, most of what Bailey Hongzhuang and the others knew was the wicked beasts on land. They knew little about the wicked beasts in the deep sea. At this moment, listening to the words of the two people, they didn't know whether it was true or false. However, if they worked together, it would not be too difficult to get rid of these aquamarine brambles. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were not worried about this. Instead, they were worried that once they made a move, their cultivation would be unintentionally exposed. Originally, the four of them had the means to conceal their strength. As long as they did not make a move, others would not be able to determine their cultivation. This was also one of the reasons why they dared to go to Penglai Island. If they could not conceal their aura, they would be no different from sitting ducks on Penglai Island. At this level of cultivation, almost no one would take them seriously. If they wanted to make a move, they could do so as they pleased. Now that the other party was in danger, their attitude towards them was naturally very good. However, once their cultivations were exposed, and the threat of the blue thorns fish was gone, they did not know if the other party would have any ill intentions. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were pondering over this question, they suddenly realized that the bottom of their boat had suffered a heavy blow. Bang! A huge force attacked the bottom of their boat, as if trying to overturn their boat. Not good. The sea blue thorns are still attacking us. Xiren's expression changed. He could see the sea blue thorns underwater through the seawater. Seeing this, Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and couldn't help but say, "It seems that we have no other choice." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "We can only take one step at a time. Fortunately, there are only two of them." Hearing this, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying also understood, there were only two of them. Even if their cultivation was at Purple Realm level 5, the four of them might still be able to fight back if they worked together. At this moment, Bewitching said to the other two, "All right, let's work together." The two of them could not help but sigh in relief when they heard Bewitching's words. "That's great." Vigorous origin energy exploded from Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three at the same time. They all took out their weapons and attacked the sea blue thorns underwater. Chapter 29-29. The four of them were only at the third level of the Purple Realm, which was only one level higher than the aquamarine brambles. It wasn't a problem to deal with these aquamarine brambles in a short period of time. But once they were surrounded, they would have to be extra careful. "Don't worry." Xiren raised his head. His handsome and gentle face was full of confidence. Although they were only at the third level of the Purple Realm, as the young sect master of the Cloud Sword sect, his strength was not something an ordinary third level of the Purple Realm could compare to. "Bachin, why don't we compete to see who can kill more aquamarine brambles?" Xiren chuckled. Bachin pierced the aquamarine bramble's body with his sword, then turned around and replied, "Sure." Seeing that the two of them could still hold such a relaxed attitude at this time, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips could not help but reveal a smile. Life was like this. What kind of attitude you use to look at life is what kind of life is like. At a time like this, the three beasts naturally wouldn't fall behind. They were also very good at things like fighting and killing. Although these fishes were very slippery and difficult to catch, It also aroused the competitive spirit in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang's colored glass sword pierced the body of an aquamarine bramble and took out the demon crystal in its body. Demon crystals had always been the white lion's food. The demon crystals of the demonic beasts in the sea were mostly sky blue, like sapphires. Under the illumination of the sun, it was very beautiful. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang took out the demon crystal, she unexpectedly discovered that there was actually another thing in the demonic beast's body. After Bailey Hongzhuang took it out, she discovered that it seemed to be a demonic beast's gallbladder, but it was emitting a rich aura of origin energy. This was not among the demonic beasts she had encountered before. It was really strange. What is this? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. A look of contemplation flashed in her eyes. Could it be that this was something unique to the demonic beasts in the sea? However, this didn't seem right. This was because none of the demonic beasts they had killed before had such a thing. Why was that? With that thought in mind, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately attacked another sea blue thorn fish to find out if all sea blue thorn fish had such a gall in their bodies. When the second blue thorn fish died at the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang, she found a demon crystal and a beast's gallbladder in the body of the other blue thorn fish. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately put the items away. Now was obviously not the time to think about these problems. Getting rid of these blue thorns was the most important thing. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three joined the battle, the pressure on the other two was greatly reduced, and they finally had a chance to catch their breath. However, when the two of them noticed the battle between Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, a strange look appeared in their eyes. We have to get rid of these sea blue thorn fish as soon as possible. The smell of blood is spreading further and further. If this continues, I'm afraid it will attract other demonic beasts. Bewitching couldn't help but remind them when he saw that the two of them had slowed down after getting a chance to catch their breath. For demonic beasts, there was a clear division of territories. This area obviously belonged to the sea blue thorn fish, so they didn't encounter other demonic beasts. Chapter 29:30. The only thing they could do now was to get rid of these aquamarine brambles as soon as possible and leave this place as soon as possible. That was the safest way. The two nodded after hearing Bewitching's words and replied, "We understand." As the six of them and the three beasts killed, the number of aquamarine brambles rapidly decreased. After seeing how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were, the aquamarine brambles no longer had their previous vigor. Even their attacking speed had decreased a little, as if they no longer had the courage to continue fighting. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. This level of battle was quite taxing on them. If they continued fighting like this, even if they killed all the aquamarine brambles, they would definitely fall into a weakened state. If they were attacked by other monsters at this time, it would undoubtedly be very dangerous. Now that the aquamarine brambles had chosen to retreat, it was undoubtedly for the best. When the first aquamarine bramble chose to retreat, the other aquamarine brambles stopped their attacks and gradually retreated to the bottom of the sea. Let's take this opportunity to leave quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest made a prompt decision and steered the boat forward. The sooner they left this place, the safer they would be. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest rowed the boat to the two men, they realized that they were cultivators around the age of 30. However, when a cultivator's cultivation reached a certain level, the speed at which their appearance changed would greatly decrease. Therefore, although the two men looked to be in their 30s, their real age was very likely to be older than that. When the two men saw the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, a look of surprise flashed across their eyes. Especially when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Shengguan Yingying, they were even more stunned. Thank you for your help. If it weren't for your help, us two brothers would have become food for the aquamarine brambles. The older of the two men spoke first. He cupped his fists towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest with gratitude on his face. Brother, you don't have to be so courteous. We were just helping out. With your strength, it's only a matter of time before you get rid of these aquamarine brambles, replied Bewitching. I'm sure the four of you are also heading to Punglai Island, right? The man revealed a kind smile. I thought us two brothers were already considered young, but after seeing the four of you, we feel ashamed. They could definitely be called geniuses among cultivators for reaching level 5 Purple Realm at their age. However, when they face with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, they could even be called young and immature. They dared not call themselves geniuses. You're too kind. We are friends when we meet. This place is not far from Penglai Island. I wonder if you can save us until the end and give us a ride? The man spoke rather awkwardly. His expression revealed that he was in a bit of a difficult position. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest noticed that the boat under their feet had started to leak water. The aquamarine bramble's attack was just too powerful. Even if their boat was not made of ordinary materials, it was still unavoidable for them to be destroyed. Chapter 2931. The two brothers were obviously not stupid. After seeing the expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they understood what they were thinking and immediately explained. We brothers are not ungrateful people who don't know how to repay kindness. The four of you can rest assured. Presumably, this is your first time going to Penglai Island. There must be a lot of things you don't know about Penglai Island. The two of us can give you an introduction. Relying on friends when going out, isn't this the situation? Bewitching and Xiren thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "All right then." They made this choice because they had another concern. The two men's ship was obviously useless. Without a ship on the sea, it was tantamount to a dead end. If they disagreed, they would only force the other party to fight with them. Rather than that, it was better to give the other party a chance. Maybe the other party really did not have any bad intentions. After seeing Bewitching and Xiren agree, the two brothers' faces showed a touch of joy. They thanked them repeatedly. Thank you, thank you. You are really chivalrous." After the two men stepped on the ship, they looked at the hull and could not help but sigh. "I'm afraid the few of you have an extraordinary background. This ship is not ordinary at first glance. Our previous ship was specially made. I didn't expect it to be unable to withstand the destructive power of the aquamarine thornfish." Xiren smiled faintly and said, "I was just lucky to get this ship. I didn't expect it to come in handy here. I'm Gao Hanxia, and this is my brother Gao Hanxiu. May I know your names?" Dichun, Wenran, Shengguaning, Lan Yishuan, Bailey Hongzhuang, and the others said their names one by one. This was something they had thought about before. Although Penglai Island did not have much contact with the forces in Shengxian continent, the four of them were quite famous in Shengxian continent. As long as the cultivators who went to Penglai Island later on, it was very likely that they would know their names. Once exposed, it would not be a good thing. It was better to hide a little more. "I see. How did the four of you find out about the existence of Penglai Island?" Gao Hanxia asked curiously. How did young Master Gao know about Penglai Island? Xiren did not answer Gao Hanxia's question. Instead, he asked a question of his own. "To tell you the truth, there is another big brother above me, and third brother. His name is Gao Hanxian. His cultivation talent is stronger than mine and third brother's. It was by chance that he came into contact with Penglai Island first. Later on, he sent a message telling third brother and me to set off for Penglai Island after we reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm. The reason why third brother and I were able to reach this level of cultivation was because of my big brother. Otherwise, it would have taken a long time for the two of us to cultivate to this level." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three revealed a look of understanding on their faces, and they had a better impression of Gao Hanxia for being straightforward. "I see. In that case, young Master Gao has a big brother to take care of you on Penglai Island. It is undoubtedly excellent." Gao Hanxia nodded and a smile appeared on his face. "Yes, but my big brother also told us that Penglai Island is very dangerous. The four of you have to be careful when you go there." "Young Master Gao, do you know what this is?" Chapter 2932. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang take out the beast's gallbladder, Bewitching and the other two's eyes also lit up. They also discovered this point, and were also very curious in their hearts. But they were busy dealing with the sea blue thorn fish, and didn't have time to talk about it. Gao Hanxia saw the thing in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and couldn't help but smile. It seems that you guys really don't know much about Penglai Island. This thing is called the gallbladder, which is the monster beast's gallbladder. Since it's just a monster beast's gallbladder, why does it have such a strong aura of origin power? You guys don't know. The Purple Realm is a watershed for both human cultivators and monster beasts. Once you cross into the Purple Realm, it's a completely different realm. As long as the monster beast breaks through to the Purple Realm, the gallbladder in its body will transform into an origin gallbladder, which is condensed from origin power. The function of the origin gallbladder is similar to that of the monster crystal. It's used by the monster beast to condense power, but the monster crystal can often only be used to refine pills or inscription techniques. It's not much help to human cultivators, but this origin gallbladder can help a cultivator improve their cultivation. It's really a good thing. Listening to Gao Hanxia's introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's faces flashed with a touch of surprise. They didn't know that the monster beast would have such a change after breaking through to the Purple Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed in her heart. It seemed that 1,000 years was really enough to change a lot. This monster beast had evolved a lot compared to before. In the past, monster beasts above the Purple Realm didn't have this origin gallbladder. So she was so surprised when she saw it. Young Master Gao, how do we absorb the energy of this origin gallbladder? When Xiren couldn't help but ask. This is very simple. As long as you hold it in your hand and operate the cultivation method, the energy will naturally be absorbed by us. The energy in the origin gallbladder is not as violent as that in the monster crystal, so we can absorb it very well. For us, hunting more monster beasts to obtain the origin gallbladder is also a good thing to improve our cultivation speed. According to my big brother, the reason why Penglai Island was established on an island is because the number of monsters in the sea area is extremely high. The number of monsters that have reached the Purple Realm and above is also much more than in the mountain range. It is the most convenient to obtain the guts here. I see. After listening to young Master Gao's introduction, we have really learned something new, Di Beichen said with a smile. Gao Hanxia waved his hand. Young Master Di, you are too polite. This is news that everyone on Penglai Island knows. You will naturally know when you reach Penglai Island. I am just telling you in advance. If it weren't for my big brother introducing us to these things, we would have come to Penglai Island in the dark. From the looks of it, your big brother should have stayed in Penglai Island for quite some time. He knows so much about Penglai Island, Shengguan Yingying said curiously. Currently, they knew very little about Penglai Island. Finally, they met someone who knew about Penglai Island. Naturally, they were eager to know more. Hearing Shengguan Yingying's question, Gao Hanxia's face showed a touch of pride. My big brother has stayed in Penglai Island for many years. Now he has a certain amount of power on Penglai Island. The four of you must have gone to Penglai Island to train. However, Penglai Island is very dangerous. If you are interested, you can come with us to find my big brother. Chapter 2933. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three quietly looked at each other. It seemed that their guess was right. Gao Hanxun did have a certain status on Penglai Island. However, they did not have any thoughts of seeking refuge from others. First, they had to go to the auction to find the 2 herbs that Di Beichen needed. As for the rest, they did not need to consider it for the time being. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 did not agree, but they also did not refuse. After all, Gao Hanxio's suggestion was for their own good. No one knew what would happen after they went to Penglai Island. Gao Hanxia looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' reaction and understood their thoughts. He did not say anything and just chatted with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others about other things. There are so few people going to Penglai Island. If we didn't meet you, we really don't know how to reach Penglai Island. Gao Hanxia smiled slightly. His face was full of emotion, but more importantly, there was a bit of joy. Xiren also smiled and nodded. We also found out about the existence of Penglai Island by chance. We only know that it is located in the extreme south, but we don't know the specific location. So we just kept going south. If we didn't meet you, we would have started to suspect that we were going in the wrong direction. Haha. So it turns out that we are not the only ones who have this idea. Gao Hanxia laughed. But we are all cultivators. We all know how difficult it is to break through to the 5th level of the Purple Realm. I think there are not many people going to Penglai Island every year. The faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others all showed a look of approval. If there were many people going to Penglai Island every day, it would be really incredible. After such a conversation, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 gradually became familiar with Gao Hanxia and the 2 brothers. They were not as repulsive as before, but they were still a little vigilant. Look, there seems to be an island in front. Bailey Hongzhuang looked ahead and saw an island appear on the wide and calm sea. She couldn't help but feel excited. As Bailey Hongzhuang finished speaking, everyone looked in the direction that Bailey Hongzhuang was pointing at. Their faces revealed joyful smiles. Is that Penglai Island? Shangguan Yingying asked doubtfully. Her soft and sweet voice was full of expectation. They had been drifting on the sea for such a long time. But this was the first time they had seen an island. That's not Penglai Island, Gao Hanxio said. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 looked at Gao Hanxio. Obviously, Gao Hanxia and his brother, who knew more about Penglai Island, had the right to speak. Penglai Island is a very large island. Its size is not something that this island can compare to. Gao Hanxia smiled. However, according to my brother, as long as we see the first island, we will not be far from the real Penglai Island. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 finally understood. No matter what, this was a good thing. After we reach the island, why don't we rest on the island for a while? Gao Hanxia suggested. Chapter 2934. Young Master One, there's something you don't know. Gao Hanxia's face revealed a simple and happy smile. This first island is called Monkey Island. There are many golden piebald monkeys living on it. These golden piebald monkeys are best at making wine. Therefore, any cultivator who passes by here will think of a way to get some monkey wine. It's said that the monkey wine is mellow and more delicious than the bejeweled nectar we usually taste. When we came here, my big brother didn't tell us anything. He only told us to remember to collect some monkey wine when we pass by Monkey Island. I wonder if you're interested in Monkey Island? If not, we won't go to the island. Gao Hanxia looked at the expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Their expressions were very clear. If it was just the 2 of them, they would have already gone to Monkey Island without hesitation. However, they were borrowing the boat of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Therefore, there was no reason to force Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to go with them. I didn't expect this island to be so interesting. I've heard that some monkeys make monkey wine that is extremely mellow. However, it's rare to see it. Since there's a chance now, I naturally want to see it. Xiren was immediately interested. Although his alcohol tolerance wasn't very good, he also liked this wine. It seems that young Master One is also a kindred spirit. Seeing when Xiren agreed, the smiles on Gao Hanxia's and Xia's faces couldn't help but deepen. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't have any objections. In fact, they had drifted on the sea for so long that they wanted to go ashore. Even if it was just to feel the touch of land, it was very good. These golden piebald monkeys aren't weak. They're around the Blue Realm. With our strength, it's more than enough to deal with them. However, we still have to be careful when we go to the island. Ever since the benefits of the monkey wine were discovered, people often came to Monkey Island to steal it. Therefore, these golden piebald monkeys have become smarter. They hate people like us who steal their wine. Gao Hanxia rubbed his head, clearly feeling a little helpless that he had to steal the monkey's wine. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but laugh softly. Looks like these gold essence piebald monkeys are very human-like. I'll really have to experience it later. Soon the ship docked at Monkey Island. After everyone got off the boat, Xiren stored the boat into his Qingkuan bag. The monkeys here were very intelligent. If he left the boat at the shore, it might disappear at any time. As soon as they reached the shore, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others saw a lush scene. The trees here seemed to be particularly dense, and the smell of grass spread out into the nostrils of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, giving them a very familiar smell. The trees here seemed to be fruit trees. Shangguan Yingying looked at the many trees in front of her in surprise. The bright red peaches on the peach trees were very tempting. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai casually plucked a few peaches and handed them to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang took the peaches and handed them to Bewitching and the others. Everyone's eyes lit up when they tasted it. Chapter 2935. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest who originally had some doubts towards Gao Hanxia, and when Xiren's words, no longer had any doubts. This place was really a paradise for the gold essence piebald monkeys. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 6 walked up, a sound attracted their attention. Zhi. Looking carefully, Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 6 immediately discovered that there were a few monkeys in front of them. These monkeys were about 1.5 meters tall, and their movements were extremely agile. Their flexibility was no different from a human's. When these monkeys saw Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 6, they bared their teeth and immediately fled towards the back. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from the sight of Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 6. These monkeys should have gone back to inform the main group. Gao Hanxia slowly said, "Young Master Gao, do you know where this monkey wine is located?" Xiren asked. Although these gold essence piebald monkeys are not very strong, but if the entire island is filled with these monkeys, and they all attack together, it won't be easy for them to escape. This monkey wine is located in the center of this monkey island, which is also the nest of this monkey island. In my opinion, why don't you all wait here for us? Third brother and I will take the opportunity to steal the wine, and immediately return after we steal the wine. With so many of us going together, I'm afraid that we will alert the enemy. Not only will we not be able to steal the wine, we may also be attacked by the group. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows slightly wrinkled. These gold essence piebald monkeys have already noticed us. If we continue to stay here, won't there be trouble? Gao Hanxia shook his head and said, "Don't worry, these gold essence piebald monkeys generally won't take the initiative to attack people. As long as you all don't do anything else, they will only secretly watch you from here and won't attack." When these words were said, Bailey Hongzhuang's group revealed a hesitant expression. These so-called gold essence piebald monkeys were a species unique to Penglai Island. They had never come into contact with them before. Therefore, they didn't know much about their temperament. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 didn't seem to believe him, Gao Hanxia continued, "Why don't we all wait here together? In a while you all will find out." Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 didn't reject Gao Hanxia's suggestion. The group immediately sat down on the spot. Not long after, they saw a group of gold essence piebald monkeys appear. They all stared at Bailey Hongzhuang's group but didn't go near them. But didn't move closer. And at the same time picked up another rock to throw a rock. Xiren. The monkey was hit. Xiren caught the rock with one hand and didn't get hit. The monkey anxiously scratched its ears and head. It had an unwilling look on its face. Seeing this, Xiren couldn't help but chuckle, revealing his white and neat teeth. These monkeys are really fun. Their vengeful nature isn't small. These gold essence piebald monkeys are very timid. As long as you don't kill them, they won't attack. Gao Hanxia said. It seems like that is the case. Bewitching nodded. After observing for a while, he also discovered the characteristics of these gold essence piebald monkeys. Chapter 2936. Young Master Gao, it's better if you all go. We'll wait for you here. Bewitching slowly said. With so many of us moving together, I'm afraid it won't be easy to steal the wine. Indeed, the fewer people going the better. Gao Hanxia nodded and said to Gao Hanxiu, "Third brother, why don't you wait for me here? I'll come back after stealing the wine. Won't it be dangerous for you to go alone? No, this monkey island is only so big. If I encounter any danger, it won't be too late for you all to come and help. It's better for me to move alone." Gao Hanxiu thought for a moment and said, "All right then." Gao Hanxia took the lead and left. Just as he said, his departure didn't attract too much attention from the gold essence piebald monkeys. These monkeys still focused their attention on Bewitching's group of 5. Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai were happily picking peaches. These monkeys tasted very good. Recently, they had been sitting on the boat and eating dry rations. They didn't get to eat any fresh fruits. Now that they came to this monkey island, it wasn't in their nature to not take some peaches. When the gold essence piebald monkeys saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai unscrupulously picking peaches, they were obviously very unhappy. However, their timid nature made them afraid of Bailey Hongzhuang's group. Therefore, they could only watch from the side and grit their teeth. Bailey Hongzhuang's group rarely had a chance to relax. At this moment, they were relaxed and basking in the sun. When they were drifting on the sea, they had to constantly be vigilant of the demon beasts that could sneak attack them at any time. Therefore, their mental strength had to be tense at all times. Although there were many gold essence piebald monkeys around them, they didn't give them any pressure. Therefore, this was their most relaxed moment so far. Gao Hanxia wasn't as good at talking as Gao Hanxia. Therefore, he just sat quietly and looked behind from time to time, as if he was very worried about Gao Hanxia's situation. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others waited for a while, Gao Hanxia finally returned with a smile on his face. It looks like young Master Gao is returning from a rewarding journey. When Xiren couldn't help but tease when he saw the smile on Gao Hanxia's face. Gao Hanxia laughed heartily. It's all thanks to you guys attracting the attention of the metal essence piebald monkeys. Although these monkeys are smart, they can't be compared to humans. I've obtained quite a bit of monkey wine. Don't worry, I won't take it all for myself. Since we've obtained it, let's set off. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. The monkey wine is gone. The golden piebald monkeys should find out soon, right? Gao Hanxia waved his hand and said, There's no hurry. Why don't we go to the shore? I caught a few birds just now, and we've been eating rations for so many days. Why don't we eat some game? If the metal essence piebald monkeys really discover us, it won't be too late for us to leave. These monkeys won't leave this island. Game to eat? That's great. Shangguaninging was pleasantly surprised. During this period of time, she was really sick of eating rations. Young Master Gao is really amazing. While stealing the monkey wine, you can also hunt for game. Truly amazing. Beichen's voice was calm, but a complicated light flashed through the depths of his eyes. Chapter 2937. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three started a fire not far from the shore, while Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxia went to the beach to clean up the food. However, after waiting for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three did not see Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxia return. What are they doing? Why haven't they returned after so long? They couldn't have met with danger, right? When Xiren could not help but stand up with a complicated expression on his face. I'll go take a look. Beichen waved his hand and said, If we're going to act, then let's act together. We'll go together. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were about to look for Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxia, the gold essence piebald monkeys, which had been very gentle all this time, suddenly became violent. Pairs of eyes turned blood red, and they attacked Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three in a frenzy. Looking at this sudden change, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were all stunned, but they still took out their weapons for the first time. The strength of the gold essence piebald monkeys was equivalent to a level 8 blue realm monster. With the cultivation of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, it was not difficult to deal with them. However, there were more than a few hundred of them. At a glance, the surroundings were densely packed with fist force gold essence piebald monkeys. This entire island was the gathering place of the gold essence piebald monkeys. Even if they had reached level 3 purple realm, being surrounded by so many gold essence piebald monkeys was an extremely frightening thing. Damn it! Why did these gold essence piebald monkeys suddenly go crazy? When Xiren's face was full of confusion, the gold essence piebald monkeys were so docile before, and did not attack at all. Why did the gold essence piebald monkeys treat them as irreconcilable enemies in such a short period of time? I'm afraid we've fallen into a trap. Beichen's face darkened in an instant, and his eyes were filled with haze. Hearing Beichen's words, Xiren's face also turned ugly. You mean this is the doing of Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxia? Ever since we came to this monkey island, the two of them always wanted to take the opportunity to leave our sight. Previously, they only left Gao Hanxia behind to avoid our suspicions. After we let down our guard, They left again, and we didn't take it to heart. These gold essence piebald monkeys, suddenly becoming like this must be related to them. I just don't know how they did it. Bewitching's brows wrinkled. He had already felt that something was wrong before. But he was not sure, so he did not say anything. Now it seemed that his hunch was not wrong. These two damned people, they really aren't anything good. Shangguan Yingying's face was full of indignation. We helped them with good intentions, but we didn't expect them to bite the hand that fed them. Bailey Hongzhuang also felt a burst of anger, but her pair of bright black eyes were calm. We have to think of a way to get out of here quickly. There are just too many of these gold essence piebald monkeys. It's impossible to kill them all first. These monkeys are too fast. We can only kill our way out first. Once we get on the boat, we'll be safe. Xiren said. Bewitching shook his head. I'm afraid the situation is not that simple. If it was really that easy to leave, Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxia would not have let us stay so close to the shore. They must be certain that we won't be able to leave. Chapter 2938. If I'm not wrong, they should be hiding on this monkey island, and are watching a good show right now. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a malicious and ruthless light. Gao Hanxia and his brother had really taught them a lesson that left a deep impression on them. These two fellows first put on a harmless and honest appearance, and they could be said to have told them everything they knew. Once they'd obtained enough trust from them, they did this now. It was really a good psychological attack. These two fellows are really too despicable. Shangguan Yingying said furiously. If I see them again, I'll definitely take their lives with my own hands. As the wife of the Cloud Sword Sect's junior sect master, no one dared to harm her. Thus, she was extremely furious when she encountered this kind of thing, and her beautiful face was dyed red with anger. The most important thing now is how we're going to escape from the siege of these gold essence piebald monkeys. If we can't escape quickly, we can only be exhausted to death here. Even if we aren't exhausted to death by the gold essence piebald monkeys, Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxia are still waiting at the side. If we're in our peak condition, we still have a chance to deal with the two of them. But once we're in a weakened state, it'll be extremely difficult to win against two 5th level Purple Realm cultivators in their peak condition. Bewitching calmly and rationally analyzed the situation before him. The opponent's move was really formidable, and they were simply in an invincible position. It's useless to think so much now. Let's deal with these gold essence piebald monkeys first. Xiren shouted loudly, then raised his weapon and attacked the gold essence piebald monkeys before him. With so many monkeys surrounding him, it was a hair-raising feeling. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 3 wasn't slow in the slightest, and a gold essence piebald monkey would definitely lose its life with every swing of their sword. Fortunately, these gold essence piebald monkeys weren't at the purple thistle realm. Otherwise, Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 would really be helpless. However, even if it was only a blue realm cultivator, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had to use all their strength to kill it as soon as possible. Therefore, the consumption of yuanqi was also very large. The 3 beasts also joined the battle at the first moment. Their attack power was also very strong, especially the white lion. Its claws and teeth were the sharpest weapons. Compared to the consumption of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3, the consumption of the 3 beasties was much lower. Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 beasts formed a circle with their backs against each other. Their main target was Bewitching, and they intended to approach the coast. However, as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 got closer to the coast, they realized that these gold essence piebald monkeys seemed to have seen through their plan. Therefore, more and more of them gathered by the coast, and some even directly entered the water. Obviously, they were determined not to let Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 leave. When he saw this scene, when Xiren secretly spat, "These damnable fellows, they lied to us and said that this group of gold essence piebald monkeys wouldn't leave the monkey island. But from what I see, these fellows are clearly extremely skilled in swimming. In this way, even if they walked to the coast, it would be impossible for them to row a boat and leave with the obstruction of these monkeys. Moreover, there were so many uncertain dangers at the bottom of the sea." Chapter 2939. Then what should we do? Shangguaninging couldn't help but panic. Many gold essence piebald monkeys had already fallen under their feet, but the remaining gold essence piebald monkeys were still densely packed together. The number of gold essence piebald monkeys living on this island simply exceeded their expectations. More than half of the yuan li in their bodies had already been consumed. If this continued, sooner or later they would be defeated by the group of gold essence piebald monkeys due to exhaustion. Bailey Hongzhuang's line of sight turned, and not only did she notice the corpse of a gold essence piebald monkey on the riverbank. Look, isn't that corpse very different? After Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder, everyone also took the opportunity to look at the riverbank while fighting. Only then did they discover that a gold essence piebald monkey had already been disemboweled at some unknown time on the riverbank. However, this gold essence piebald monkey was completely different from the gold essence piebald monkeys they had seen before. The other gold essence piebald monkeys were all brown, but this one was bright red. This gold essence piebald monkey shouldn't be the leader, right? Shangguaninging was speechless. The ranks of demonic beasts were clearly separated. Whenever there was a demonic beast that was different from the others, its identity would usually be the leader. Looks like the wild game that Gao Hanxia said he found should be this guy. No wonder these gold essence piebald monkeys would suddenly become so crazy. Beichen's voice was slightly heavy. A trace of sharpness flashed past his pitch-black deep eyes. For a moment, everyone had a feeling that they had previously thought of things too simply. They originally thought that Gao Hanxia duo wouldn't be able to play any tricks under their watch. They didn't expect that the other party had actually arranged everything so seamlessly. Speaking of which, the reason why they had fallen into this situation, on one hand, was because they had too little understanding of Penglai Island. On the other hand, it was also because of their negligence. The feeling of exhaustion gradually came over Bailey Hongzhuang, and the others couldn't help but slow down their speed of killing the demonic beasts. However, the gold essence piebald monkeys had already killed until their eyes turned red. They had completely regarded them as an irreconcilable enemy. Dauntlessly rushing forward wave after wave made them feel very helpless. We can't continue like this. Everyone could not help but feel anxious in their hearts. If this continued, they would only be exhausted to death. Not far away, Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxia were watching the show with smiles on their faces. Second brother, they can't hold on much longer. Gao Hanxia's face was full of smiles. Although they were very vigilant along the way, they still fell for our trick. The older the ginger, the spicier it is, haha. Gao Hanxia's lips curled into a triumphant smile. These guys are young, and this is the first time they have come to Penglai Island. I can only say that they are unlucky. They will lose their lives here before they even arrive. However, judging from the things on their bodies, they should not be ordinary people. The things in their Qingkuan bags must be very rich. Speaking of which, we brothers are really lucky this time. Second brother, do you know what species those three contracted beasts are? His battle prowess is so powerful it's really shocking. Gao Hanxia's gaze landed on the three beasts. He had already noticed the three beasts when he was dealing with the aquamarine thornfish. If he could have such beasts, they would be a great help to him. Chapter 2940. I can only say that these guys have an extraordinary background. Their cultivation hasn't even reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm, yet they dared to come to Penglai Island. It's really strange. But let's get rid of them here as soon as possible. This way, no one will know and we won't have to worry about revenge. Just that ship alone is worth tens of thousands of gold. Gao Hanxia's eyes lit up. When he encountered the blue thorns, he only felt that he was unlucky. He didn't expect that there would be a silver lining. This was a good thing that fell from the sky. Gao Hanxia smiled and nodded. It's not easy to meet such a fat sheep. The heavens are really good to us. Big brother, it's fine if those two brats die. But those two beauties are really beautiful. Are we just going to let them die like this? Gao Hanxia's eyes were filled with a trace of covetousness. As soon as he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguaninging, he couldn't help but have such thoughts in his mind. Those two were the best of the best. Even for the two of them, they had never seen such extreme beauties before. It would be a pity if they just watched them die like this. Listening to Gao Hanxio's words, Gao Hanxia couldn't help but look at Gao Hanxio and said, "Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? We'll save those two beauties later, haha." As soon as these words came out, Gao Hanxio's eyes suddenly became brighter. He couldn't help but rub his hands together, and his heart was filled with excitement. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others might not be able to hold on for long, Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxio moved closer. They crossed their arms in front of their chests and looked like they were watching a good show. Gao Hanxio, you two despicable and shameless guys." Xiren's sharp eyes noticed the two guys approaching and couldn't help but curse angrily. In the face of Xiren's anger, the smiles on Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxio's faces became wider. "With your strength, going to Penglai Island is just going to die. You even have to sacrifice two beauties. Why don't we send you on your way? The sooner you die, the sooner you can reincarnate." Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxio looked at each other and laughed even more heartily. How could they not be happy when such a good thing fell on their heads? Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' expressions turned even uglier when they heard Gao Hanxia and his brother's words. Bewitching and Xiren's eyes flashed with killing intent. These two damned bastards actually dared to covet their women? You guys are shameless. Shangguan Yingying was so angry that her face turned red. How could such shameless words come out of the other party's mouth? It was a great insult. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were sharp and cold as she looked at the other party. "Scum like you, I'm afraid you're not qualified?" "Oh." Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was suspicious of them, Gao Hanxia couldn't help but say, "Beauty, don't worry. Soon I will let you know how brave we are, ha ha." In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching couldn't help but look at each other. Bewitching nodded to Bailey Hongzhuang without a trace, and Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. Chapter 2941. At the same time, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had both consumed a pill, their eyes were gloomy and fierce as they stared at Gao Hanxia and Shangguan Yingying. Suddenly smelling a strange fragrance, Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxio could not help but look at each other. Their eyes were filled with suspicion, as if something was amiss. However, what happened next completely shocked the two of them. Within their line of sight, the gold essence piebald monkeys, who had been attacking Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, suddenly seemed to have gone mad and began to kill each other. After the gold essence piebald monkeys had killed each other, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had easily retreated from the encirclement. At this moment, their faces were gloomy as they stared at Gao Hanxia and Shangguan Yingying. This sudden turn of events had clearly exceeded Gao Hanxia and Shangguan Yingying's expectations. When the two of them saw this, their minds were momentarily unable to process the situation. They could not understand how Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had managed to break through a situation where victory was within their grasp in such a short time. "You know how to use poison." Gao Hanxia's eyes instantly widened as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. His pale face was filled with disbelief. "Unfortunately, I am a poison master." Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was calm and indifferent, but it was like a blow to Gao Hanxia and Shangguan Yingying's heads. Under this kind of situation where they were surrounded, any cultivator would be helpless. However, there was one kind of person who was an exception, and that was a poison master. Poison masters were least afraid of using a sea of people, because their poison did not care about the number of people. It had the same lethality and disregarded everything. They had never thought that there would be a poison master among Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. "You've already seen through our actions?" Gao Hanxio asked in disbelief. "Do you really think that your acting skills are outstanding? If we only had your intelligence, we would have died many times over." When Xiren's handsome and refined face curled into a playful smile, they were not flowers in a greenhouse. During their years of training in the outside world, they had experienced various schemes. Even though Gao Hanxia and Shangguan Yingying's acting skills were not bad, to them, apart from themselves, they would not believe everything said by anyone else. Therefore, they had never let down their guard. "Then why were you surrounded previously?" Gao Hanxia lost his voice, and his voice suddenly became sharper. Bewitching looked at him coldly and said, "I want to see what kind of tricks you are playing. If we don't cooperate with the play that you have painstakingly put on, wouldn't that disappoint you? As soon as these words came out, Gao Hanxiao and Gao Hanxiu felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over them from head to toe. They couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spine. They thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were young, and their life experience was certainly not rich enough. Their experience in Jianghu was also not enough, so they had such thoughts. Who would have thought that not only were the four of them not inexperienced, but on the contrary, they looked like they were extremely experienced. You're only at the 3rd level of the Purple Realm. You're no match for us brothers. Gao Hanxia regained his senses after a short moment of shock. Since things had developed to this point, there was no hope for them to effortlessly get rid of the other party. However, they still had a higher chance of winning in a direct confrontation. Chapter 2942. Hearing Gao Hanxia's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two smiled tacitly at the same time. Exhaustion was indeed a situation that no one could avoid. However, their physical fitness was also far from what ordinary cultivators could compare to. After a long period of high-intensity battles, their endurance had long been imperceptibly improved. Their previous anxiousness and exhaustion were just a pretense to deceive Gao Hanxia and his brother. In reality, the previous battle did not cause them to fall into such a state. Bailey Hongzhuang, Bewitching, and the three beasties often cultivated in the desert world. Once the demonic beasts in the desert world appeared, they did not care whether they were exhausted or not. Instead, they were all creatures with rough skin and thick flesh that could take a beating. The physical strength and energy required to deal with them were much more than ordinary demonic beasts. After such a long time, they had long been used to it. Although Xiren and Shangguan Yingying did not have the opportunity to train like Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they had some understanding of Sect Master Wen's character. Normally, his requirements for Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying would not be low. Cut the crap, do it! A cold killing intent flashed in Bewitching's eyes that were as deep as an ancient well. He was too lazy to waste his breath on these two fellows. In reality, from the moment these two fellows dared to have fantasies about Bailey Hongzhuang that they should not have, the killing intent in his heart had already begun to boil. When Xiren nodded, a grim expression surfaced on his elegant and broad face. Don't be fooled by his usual mischievous face. Shangguan Yingying was his reverse scale. These two damned fellows, he must personally wring their necks. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying followed closely behind, killing intent boiling in their eyes. The anger from before had completely exploded at this moment. When Gao Hanxia and Shangguan Yingying saw that Bewitching's group of four, whose strength could not be compared to theirs, actually dared to take the initiative to challenge them, an expression of disbelief appeared on their faces. Could it be that these fellows were really that confident in their strength? At the level of the Purple Realm, the gap between two levels was not ordinary. Bewitching's mind moved, and the blood aura field instantly erupted. A terrifying killing intent mixed with a strong smell of blood swept out with him as the center. The aura that was originally at the 3rd level of the Purple Realm directly rose to the 5th level of the Purple Realm at this moment. Seeing this scene, Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxiu could not help but be dumbfounded. Blood aura field. You are actually the inheritor of the Blood Aura Tower. Gao Hanxiu exclaimed. Looking at Bewitching, it was as if he had seen a ghost. He had gone to Penglai Island, and was very familiar with the power of the Blood Chi field. However, he had never thought that the young man in front of him, who he thought would be easy to deal with, was actually the inheritor of the Blood Chi field. You have some eyes, I see. After his words as ja, as he directly, as he, to the attacks attack twos to attack. Of his ying. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang's blood aura field also erupted at the first moment. Ending the battle quickly was the best way. Earlier, when they fought with the aquamarine thorns, they already had a certain understanding of the strength of Gao Hanxia and his brother. Chapter 2943. It was because of this that they didn't mind being on the same boat as Gao Hanxia and his brother. The other party had been trying to deceive them, So how could they not be prepared? After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was also an inheritor of the blood aura, Gao Hanxia and his brother were completely dumbfounded. The inheritance of the blood aura was something that only geniuses among geniuses could obtain. Normally, they could only fantasize about it. They knew very well that it was impossible for them to obtain such an inheritance. However, they had never seen an inheritor of the blood aura before. They didn't expect that two of them would appear. At this moment, they finally understood why Bailey Hongzhuang and the others dared to come to Penglai Island, even though their cultivation hadn't reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm. It turned out that they had such confidence. The combat power of an inheritor of the blood aura could no longer be judged simply by their cultivation. They often had the ability to fight above their level. It seemed that the pie in the sky that they thought was falling from the sky wasn't the case at all. It was just that they had thought too simply. "Third brother, let's fight!" Gao Hanxia shouted. They had no way out now. If they didn't kill the other party, only death would await them. Gao Hanxia nodded. The elemental energy in his body burst out in an instant. He didn't dare to leave any leeway. If they weren't careful, the brothers could very well lose their lives here. Bang bang bang. Vigorous elemental energy swept across the Monkey Island. Martial arts techniques collided continuously. The destructive power was extremely shocking. However, the gold essence-spotted monkeys had already killed each other to the point that they couldn't differentiate between them. Therefore, they didn't know what was happening outside. The three beasties weren't idle either. Although their cultivation wasn't as high as Gao Hanxia and Wen Xinbei, they had the advantage in numbers. When they joined forces, even Gao Hanxia and Wen Xinbei felt a headache. However, Gao Hanxia and Wen Xinbei were still cultivators of the 5th level of the Purple Realm. The elemental energy in their bodies was extremely abundant. At this moment, their combat power was extremely terrifying. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. Bewitching and Xiren both took 2 steps back, while Gao Hanxia's body flew backward. Ta-ta-ta! Gao Hanxia's feet continuously stepped on the ground. The ground under his feet cracked inch by inch, leaving behind spiderweb-like cracks. In the end, he leaned against a peach tree to stabilize his body. His expression became extremely ugly. His originally rosy face had become pale. As the blood had faded, his gaze towards Bewitching and Xiren was filled with fear. Pfft! Just as he wanted to speak, Gao Hanxia's as he spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with his internal organs. He's a zest. Seeing this, Bewitching raised his eyebrows, and when Xiren's lips curled into a smile, the two did not hesitate to attack Gao Hanxia again. Taking his to kill him. Gao Hanxia's eyes flashed with a hint of panic. For a moment, he didn't have the heart to fight and chose to escape. His injuries were already extremely serious. If he were to endure another blow, his little life would be completely lost. Bewitching and Xiren naturally wouldn't let him do as he wished. They immediately chased after him, and 2 attacks lingered around him. Bang! Chapter 2944. Bailey Hongzhuang, Shengguan Yingying, and the 3 beasties' target was Gao Xiaqiu. As Gao Hanxia's younger brother, Gao Xiaqiu's strength was weaker than Gao Hanxia's. Although Gao Hanxiu's explosive fighting strength was very shocking when he was in danger, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shengguan Yingying's combined fighting strength was also very good. In addition to the 3 beasties' assistants, it wasn't difficult for them to deal with Gao Hanxiu. In fact, even if Bailey Hongzhuang were to face Gao Hanxiu alone, she wouldn't be afraid. What's more, he had so many helpers now. It would be a piece of cake to deal with them. Bewitching, and when Xiren slowly walked towards Gao Hanxia, who was lying on the ground, unable to get up, Gao Hanxia had underestimated them, thinking that they were only ordinary 3rd-level Purple Realm cultivators. In fact, each of them had the ability to fight above their level. You guys don't come over." Gao Hanxia's eyes flashed with deep panic, and his voice was trembling. It was a stark contrast to the proud smile from before. "I heard that you 2 brothers have designs on our women?" Xiren's lips curled slightly, and his low and hoarse voice quietly sounded in Gao Hanxia's ears. But Gao Hanxia couldn't help but shiver. Whether it was Bewitching or Wen Xiren, their gazes were as sharp as knives. making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. In the next moment, the sound of someone falling to the ground rang out beside Gao Hanxia, stirring up a cloud of dust. Looking carefully, Gao Hanxia realized that the person who had fallen beside him was none other than his third brother, Gao Hanxiu. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying immediately came to Bewitching's side. Looking at the Gao brothers who had lost their fighting strength, a smile bloomed on their pretty faces. Shangguan Yingying clapped her hands. These two fellows were so arrogant before, and I thought they were very powerful. Quickly get rid of them, and let's continue on our way. We don't have to waste any more time here. Since it's Madam's order, there's naturally no problem. Xiren immediately nodded, looking as if he was obeying her orders. Hearing Shangguan Yingying's words, Gao Hanxia and Shangguan Yingying felt a chill in their hearts and hurriedly said, "Madam, please be magnanimous and spare us this time." As soon as these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but chuckle. Compared to the previous clamor of Gao Hanxia and his brother, this kind of begging for mercy at the moment was really a bit ironic. However, if they really believed their words, they would be stupid. These words, do you believe your own words? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had made up their minds to not let them go, the two of them were extremely anxious. They had painstakingly cultivated to their current level with great difficulty. They hadn't even had the time to enjoy their lives, yet they were going to lose their lives just like that. It was really too unreconciled to accept this. "You can't kill us." Gao Hanxia calmed down and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three with a burning gaze. "My big brother left a magic weapon on us. If you dare to kill us, my big brother will never let you go. If you go to Penglai Island, you'll also die. You'll definitely be hunted down by my big brother. Why don't you let us go, and we'll write off all our grievances, how about it?" Chapter 2945. There were indeed some methods in this world. After a cultivator had fallen, they would send a video of their death back to their family, so that they would know who had killed them. That way their family would be able to avenge them. However, the cost of creating such a video was not small. Therefore, although it existed, it was rarely seen on a daily basis. They never thought that the Gao brothers would have such a thing on them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three did not doubt this. Along the way, although the Gao brothers had deceived them quite a bit, they were all half-truths. They believed that Gao Hanxia was on Penglai Island, and his position should be quite high. From what they had heard, Gao Hanxia treated his two younger brothers very well. Therefore, it was not strange for them to have such a thing on them. Once they arrived on Penglai Island, it would be very troublesome if they were to be hunted down by Gao Hanxia. When Gao Hanxia and the other two saw the hesitation on Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's faces, they were overjoyed. It seemed that their words had made the other party wary. "My big brother has been on Penglai Island for many years, and his influence is not small. I'm afraid that you'll be targeted as soon as you arrive on Penglai Island." The fear on Gao Hanxia's face had disappeared. At this moment, he was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three would not dare to make a move. Instead, he began to act recklessly. In this world, the most important thing was power. Gao Hanxia's existence was destined to be feared. "I see that you're getting cockier and cockier." When he saw the smug look on Gao Hanxia's face again, Xiren's displeasure exploded. In the next second, his sharp sword pierced Gao Hanxia's chest without hesitation. "You're so cocky because I said you were fat. I hate it when people act arrogantly in front of me." If he wanted to be arrogant, he would only be arrogant in front of others. Gao Hanxia could not help but be dumbfounded. Just a second ago, he had seen Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's hesitation. Just because of his third brother's smug look, Xiren had directly killed his third brother? What happened to the promised turnaround? He was completely out of character. Since we've already killed him, his elder brother should already know that Gao Hanxia was killed by us. Let's just kill them all. Bewitching's voice was cold, and the sharp sword in his hand had already turned towards Gao Hanxia. Hearing this, Gao Hanxia could not help but shudder in his heart. He hurriedly said, No, don't kill me. I can talk to my big brother and ask him not to be calculative." However, Bewitching simply ignored Gao Hanxia's words. The sword in his hand had already pierced down. Gao Hanxia's eyes were wide open as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. In his mind, he kept thinking that if his third brother hadn't been so complacent, would the situation have been different? However, he could only go to the netherworld to find the answer. These two fellows are really stupid. I teased them, and they really thought they had a chance to live. When Xiren wiped off the blood on his sword and put it back into the scabbard, his lips curled into a playful smile. If you cut the grass without removing the roots, it will grow again when the spring breeze blows. This was a famous saying that they had kept in mind since they were young. Chapter 2946. At the same time, a middle-aged man on Penglai Island was staring at the scene in front of him. He was waiting for his two younger brothers to come to Penglai Island to help him and become his right and left arms. However, they were killed on their way to Penglai Island. His eyes turned blood red in an instant, and the veins on his temples bulged rapidly. The teacup in his hand was crushed into powder by him. These four bastards. He would definitely tear them into pieces with his own hands. Xiren and Bewitching reached out and took Gao Hanxia and his brother's Qingquan pouch. Just as they were about to check if there was anything useful inside, a scene suddenly appeared in front of their eyes. It was a face that looked very similar to Gao Hanxia and his brother. At this moment his eyes were burning with rage. If he could erupt, he would have burned Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three into ashes. Unfortunately, he could only leave behind an image and could not do anything to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. The four of you, as long as you dare to step into Penglai Island, I will make sure you die with my brother. A loud and murderous voice rang in the ears of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. The image then disappeared. Looking at the murderous gaze in the image, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could not help but look at each other. Sure enough, Gao Hanxia and his brother were not lying. Gao Hanxia has already remembered the four of us. It seems that we have already set up a very strong enemy before we even arrived at Penglai Island. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Her eyes were as calm as water, but there was no fear. We have to be more careful when we reach Penglai Island. With the other party's methods, it should be very easy for them to find new cultivators. Bewitching's handsome face flashed with a trace of seriousness. His voice was low and cautious. Before they understood Penglai Island, everything was unknown. They had to be more careful. When the time comes, we'll disguise ourselves first. It's best if we split into two groups to go ashore, or dress up as men. This way, it won't be easy for Gao Hanxia to confirm that it's us. Bailey Hongzhuang's inky black phoenix eyes rippled with confidence. The reason why Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't afraid of Gao Hanxia's discovery was because they could change their appearances. With her disguise technique, ordinary people would not be able to see through her. Hearing this, Bewitching nodded. This was the only method they could use for now. Don't worry. There are so many powerful people on Penglai Island. I don't believe that Gao Hanxia can cover the sky with one hand. Maybe we are lucky. Shangguan Yingying smiled slightly, and a joke dispelled the originally slightly heavy atmosphere. Yingying is right. Let's take a look at what's inside this cosmos sack. It might be of some help to us. When Xiren was obviously an optimist, as long as the situation did not develop to a point where they could not accept it, everything was still hopeful. Opening the cosmos sack, everyone could not help but feel that Gao Hanxia and his brother were quite wealthy. There were quite a lot of elixirs and money inside. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not pay much attention to these and kept it. What is this? Xiren took out a few crystal clear stones from the cosmos sack. The size of these stones were not very regular, but there was a strong fluctuation of elemental energy on them. Chapter 2947. Penglai Island really has a lot of new things. I am already very interested even before reaching Penglai Island. Xiren's handsome face revealed a look of anticipation. No wonder his family's old man kept asking him to come to Penglai Island. It seemed that this place was really a new world. If he could make a name for himself on Penglai Island, it would be really good. There really is monkey wine. They did not lie to us about this. Shangguan Yingying said in surprise. There were several large wine jars placed inside the Qingkuan bag. Even though they were sealed, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could still smell the rich wine fragrance. Just by smelling it, I can tell that it is good stuff. Bewitching's lips slightly lifted. He had been tasting wine with his master for so many years. Just by smelling it, he could tell that this wine was not ordinary. The wine brewed by these golden piebald monkeys was indeed excellent. It must be one of the best wines in the entire Xingxian continent. After carefully looking at the various things inside, most of them were ordinary things. However, there were two invitation letters that attracted the attention of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Auction invitation letter? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the words written on the gilded invitation letter. Her eyes suddenly brightened. They had specially come to Penglai Island this time to go to the auction. They did not expect the Gao Hanxia brothers to have an invitation letter to the auction. From the looks of it, I am afraid that the auction on Penglai Island is not something that just anyone can attend. Only people who have an invitation letter can enter. Bewitching looked at the invitation letter in his hand. There were small words written on it. An invitation letter could only bring one more person. It was just right that the four of them had two invitation letters. No matter what, this is good news. We have to keep it well. When Xiren was all smiles. Although they had been schemed against, they were still very satisfied with their gains overall. We've been delayed here for so long. Let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Originally, the Monkey Island was filled with the fragrance of peaches. It was very pleasant to smell, but now it was completely covered by the smell of blood. It was not a pleasant smell at all. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Bewitching and the other two nodded and walked towards the shore together. The Metal Fairy's piebald monkeys, who were originally in a frenzy, were now completely exhausted. One by one they fainted. However, the number of corpses on the ground was still shocking. Hongzhuang, are these gold essence-spotted monkeys all dead? Shangguan Yingying looked at the scene in front of her and sighed. In fact, these gold essence piebald monkeys were very cowardly. If they had not been used by Gao Hanxia, they would not have fallen to such a state. A monkey that knew how to brew wine was very interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. The casualties are not small. However, they are not extinct. Don't worry, the reproduction of demon beasts has always been very scary. Humans and demon beasts had been in a state of confrontation for so many years. The advantage of humans was their intelligence, while the advantage of demon beasts was their reproduction. As long as they were not extinct, it was only a matter of time before they could develop again. So that's how it is. Shangguan Yingying smiled faintly. Let's go. Xiren waved his hand, and the boat appeared on the sea. Chapter 2948. After drifting on the sea for another 3 days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three suddenly realized that there was a faint golden barrier in front of them. The barrier was transparent, and if it weren't for the golden sunlight reflecting off it, it wouldn't have been discovered at all. Taking a closer look, everyone realized that the size of the barrier was simply astonishing. Looking around, the entire sea seemed to be divided into two by the barrier. No matter if it was the left or the right, they couldn't see the end of it. This barrier should be the isolation barrier of Penglai Island. Bewitching looked at the incomparably shocking barrier in front of him. His heart was also filled with shock. Everyone was familiar with the barrier, especially on the battle stage. However, such a huge barrier was truly shocking. At the very least, they had never heard of such a thing. When Xiren nodded, my old man said that when we're about to reach Penglai Island, we'll pass through a barrier. Only those who have reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm, or those who have other methods, can pass through it. If you don't meet the requirements, you won't be able to pass through this barrier no matter what. Now I'm still wondering what this barrier looks like. Now that I've seen it, I've really learned something new. Master, I have a feeling that the people on Penglai Island aren't simple. To be able to set up such a perverted barrier, how strong must they be? Xiao He was secretly speechless. Both of its hands were constantly scratching its white fur. Before they even reached Penglai Island, they were already shocked by the various foundations of Penglai Island. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Penglai Island is indeed not to be underestimated. We just need to be more careful. In a place like this, the cultivation resources and other things are often incomparable to other places. Once a cultivator reaches the Purple Realm, their cultivation speed will greatly decrease. I think that only by going to a place like this can we increase our cultivation faster. Where there were opportunities, there were always risks. This was a common understanding among all of them. Compared to encountering danger, stagnation was the scariest. Soon Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three arrived in front of the barrier. Reaching out their hands to touch it, everyone realized that the barrier was like a wall, with a real touch. No matter how hard they tried, the barrier didn't react at all. After carefully sensing it, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were able to determine that the barrier was able to withstand a shocking amount of power. Even if a 9th-level Purple Realm cultivator were to attack it, it would not be affected at all. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three looked at each other and nodded. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching activated their blood aura fields at almost the same time, and a tyrannical power instantly erupted. The two of them were not even at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, so the only way they could enter the barrier was by relying on the blood aura field. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Shifeng displayed their blood aura fields, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised to discover that ripples had appeared on the previously immovable barrier. It was as if the barrier had turned into mist. Bailey Hongzhuang tried to take a step forward. Then, she passed through the barrier and appeared on the other side. Chapter 2949. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes, like black diamonds, could not help but flash with a touch of amazement. The setup of this barrier was really amazing, and the perception was so obvious. They had just used the blood chi field, and everything went smoothly. On the other side, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying took out a hexagonal token from their Qingquan bag. After they injected their yuan chi into the token, a bright golden light bloomed from the token. The golden energy seemed to have merged with the barrier, and ripples spread out on the barrier. At the same time, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying also successfully passed through the barrier, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at Shangguan Yingying's strange token and method, and a hint of surprise appeared in their eyes, but they didn't ask. Everyone had their own secrets, even if they were partners in life and death. Wanting to know all the methods of the other was never a wise move. After when Xiren successfully passed through, he also breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, my old man didn't lie to me. Otherwise, if we were blocked here, wouldn't I be angered to death? Bewitching's lips curled into a smile. Although Sect Master Wen doesn't like to talk on weekdays, what he says is never false. Xiren nodded and said, "That's true. After we pass through this barrier, we should be able to reach Penglai Island soon. It seems like we have to start preparing." When these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's faces simultaneously showed a heavy expression. It would be fine if they didn't have any opponents, but according to their estimates, Gao Hanshun had been waiting for them to appear. Gao Hanshun probably knew how long it would take to reach Penglai Island from Monkey Island. They were most worried that once they reached Penglai Island, they would be targeted by Gao Hanshun. That would be really troublesome. After the boat drifted for 6 hours, an island slowly appeared in the sight of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. This island was undoubtedly much larger than the Monkey Island they had seen before. It was at least several times larger than the Monkey Island they had seen before. Looking at the island from afar, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's eyes lit up, and a trace of excitement appeared in their hearts. After drifting on the sea for so long, we finally see the true face of Penglai Island. It's hidden too well. If we weren't sure that it was here, we wouldn't have been able to persevere all the way here. Xiren shook his head. Previously, they were wondering why the ordinary people of Shengxian continent had never discovered Penglai Island. As a matter of fact, after drifting on the sea for nearly a month, as long as one wasn't stupid, they wouldn't have the sudden idea to attempt such a thing. I really miss the feeling of having my feet on the ground. I really want to go ashore as soon as possible. Shangguan Yingying had a joyful smile on her lips. Her eyes were as bright as the stars. Obviously, she was full of hope for Penglai Island. Bewitching looked at the sky and said, "In my opinion, we should wait until the night is dark before going ashore." "It's late at night." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "It's best if we split into two groups. That way the target will be smaller." Chapter 2950. However, the appearance of four people together would inevitably arouse suspicion. After all, there were too few newcomers appearing every day. As long as it was confirmed that it was a team of four, it would not be far from the truth. "Then you and Beichen will be in a team, and I will be in a team with Ying. We will act separately at night, and meet up again when we reach the island?" When Xiren suggested, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head lightly. Her originally beautiful face had disappeared, and was replaced by a young man of about 25 years old. His appearance could only be said to be delicate and pretty, but not very eye-catching. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, Bewitching and Xiren had also concealed their usual handsome appearance and changed into an ordinary appearance. At least, it would not be unforgettable and leave a deep impression on others. Shangguan did not disguise herself as a woman. She was still dressed as a woman, and her appearance had also become delicate and pretty, giving off the feeling of a pretty girl from a humble family. The four of them had changed from the extremely eye-catching team of 2 men and 2 women to an ordinary team of 3 men and 1 woman. They believed that as long as Gao Hanchun did not have any special methods, it would be impossible for him to recognize the 4 of them. The night gradually thickened, and when the surroundings were completely dark, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 separated into 2 groups and rowed their boats to the shore. Bailey Hongzhuang followed behind Bewitching. Now that Bewitching was her big brother, and since it was a pretense, Bailey Hongzhuang also acted very well. No matter whether it was her actions or words, no one would suspect that she was not a real man. After the 2 of them went ashore, they immediately stored their boats. Once again feeling the feeling of being on solid ground, the 2 of them felt a sense of relief, but neither of them let down their guard. When the 2 of them went ashore, they realized that there were other people preparing to leave. The entire pier was not as deserted as they thought. On the contrary, it was very lively. Bright lights illuminated the entire pier, and bursts of conversation and laughter entered the ears of Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other and smiled at the same time. It seemed that the situation was much better than they had imagined. If they were the only ones on the shore, it would be easy for them to be targeted. However, with so many people here, it would be easy for them to be discovered. Even if Gao Hanchuan's methods were not weak, it was impossible for him to keep an eye on the pier every day. Whenever someone came ashore, he would arrest them to confirm their identity. There are still so many people leaving at night. Could it be that they are returning to the Xingxian continent? Baisher was puzzled. With so many people leaving together, it didn't seem like it. "I don't think so." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Prunglai Island isn't just an island, but a combination of many islands. It's just that the largest and most famous island is called Prunglai Island. We can't be sure which island we are on right now. It's very likely that these people are heading to another island. That's right. I heard the name of another island from their discussion just now. Bewitching replied. Let's find an inn to stay in first. I'm sure that we'll be able to obtain quite a bit of useful information. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a wise light. Obtaining information from the mouth of a waiter was undoubtedly the easiest and fastest way to obtain information. However, the people who came here were all experts above the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Would there really be a waiter here? Chapter 2951. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching walked all the way to the shore. Even though it was already night time, the entire island was still brightly lit and very lively. Along the way from the dock, there were lanterns hanging on both sides of the road. The road was long and lit up. What was different from ordinary cities was that there were no hawkers on the road here. However, the shops on both sides of the road were still full of everything. It was much better than what Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had imagined. The 2 walked directly into the first inn. This was what they had agreed with Xiren. They would go ashore in batches and finally gather at the first inn. "Shopkeeper, we want a guest room," Bewitching said slowly. Seeing that there were guests, the shopkeeper's face immediately hung a smile. "2 guests. The upper room costs 1 low-grade spirit stone per night. How many nights would you like to stay?" As soon as the words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching couldn't help but look at each other. Their eyes flashed with a touch of doubt. Low-grade spirit stone? Could it be that the money of Penglai Island and the money of Shengxian continent were not the same? The shopkeeper nodded. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's confused look, he also understood. "I'm afraid the 2 of you are new to Penglai Island." The shopkeeper lowered his voice to prevent the cultivators eating in the lobby from hearing. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching nodded. Since they didn't know anything, it was better to take advantage of this opportunity to learn more. No wonder. The shopkeeper's face showed a smile of understanding. Penglai Island is different from the outside world. The common currency here is spirit stone. Ordinary money has no use here. The 2 of you are new here, so it's normal that you don't understand the situation. As long as you go to the square tomorrow to register your information, you will receive your first batch of spirit stones. However, after receiving this first batch of spirit stones, you will have to rely on yourselves to earn the rest. Listening to the shopkeeper's introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Mingya's faces revealed a look of realization. Coming to Penglai Island was indeed like coming to a new world. Even the common currency had changed. In Bailey Hongzhuang's mind, she vaguely understood that the stones filled with energy fluctuations in Gaohanxia and Gaohanxia's Qingquan bags were the spirit stones that the shopkeeper had mentioned. "Since the 2 of you are new here today, why don't you stay here for the time being and pay the bill after you collect the spirit stones tomorrow?" The shopkeeper had a kind smile on his face, but such kind words made Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching shocked. This shopkeeper was so kind. Was he not afraid that they would leave on credit? However, the shopkeeper's next sentence made them understand where his confidence came from. Penglai Island has a very strict punishment for people who buy on credit. If you dare to buy on credit, as long as you haven't left the island, you will definitely be caught. Since the 2 of you are new to Penglai Island, I advise you not to try it so easily. "Thank you, shopkeeper. We will definitely pay in full tomorrow." Bewitching bowed. The shopkeeper nodded with satisfaction. He waved his hand to the waiter behind him and said, "Bring the 2 guests to the upper room." The waiter quickly greeted them and led Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Mingya upstairs. Chapter 2952. Just as the waiter was about to leave, Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand and said, "Wait, little brother. Don't be in such a hurry to leave." Hearing this, the waiter was slightly stunned. Then he closed the door and walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching. "What do the 2 guests want to know? As long as you can pay, I will tell you everything I know." If it was a normal day, there would be no problem with paying some compensation. However, they had just shown in front of the shopkeeper that they were newcomers. It would be inappropriate to take out the spirit stones now. It was hard to imagine that with Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's status, they would still have such a difficult time. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a white porcelain bottle from her Qingquan bag and said, "Is this Dan okay?" The waiter took the Dan and looked at it. Suddenly, the smile on his face became wider. Yes, of course. The value of this Dan was much higher than the low-grade spirit stones. The waiter understood that it must be because Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching did not understand the value of Penglai Island and the spirit stones. Such a good thing could only be obtained from the hands of a cultivator who had just arrived. If it was someone else who was familiar with Penglai Island, it would definitely be impossible. "What do the 2 of you want to know? As long as it is something I know, I will never lie to you." The waiter's attitude was very enthusiastic. Since he had received such a great benefit, he naturally would not hide anything. "Little brother, I heard that only cultivators who have reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm can enter Penglai Island. Why is your cultivation not at that level?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked the question in her heart. Not only the waiter, but even the shopkeeper's cultivation was far from the 5th level of the Purple Realm. When she first entered the restaurant, she felt that this was very strange. It was just that she never had the chance to ask. Hearing this, the waiter smiled and said, "Guests, there is something you don't know. If everyone here is at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, would you come to Penglai Island to open a shop, or serve people with such cultivation?" Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "Of course not." "That's right." The waiter continued. "The cultivators here are all above the 5th level of the Purple Realm. However, there are also many ordinary people on the island. Not all of them are masters. However, these 2 points do not conflict. Other than the people in the shop, everyone else you see should be masters." "How did you come to Penglai Island?" Bewitching asked in a deep voice. "Actually, people like us with ordinary cultivations are the descendants of former experts. It's just that due to the limitations of our talent, we weren't able to cultivate to that level. However, once we cultivate to that level, we can no longer be servants. We can directly become free cultivators like you all. Even though we've been busy in the shop, we've never given up on cultivating. However, if we want to cultivate wholeheartedly, it is not possible. Unless we leave Penglai Island and cultivate to the 5th level of the Purple Realm, and then come back. Compared to the outside world, the cultivation resources on Penglai Island are much more abundant. The cultivation speed here is faster. However, there is no lack of people who want to go to the outside world to enjoy glory and wealth." Chapter 2953. The attendant waved his hand. "That won't happen. Every island has its own guards to maintain the order of the island. For example, our Emerald Island has its own Emerald Guards. It has nothing to do with the conflicts between cultivators. But if it involves ordinary people, then it won't do. They will definitely be arrested by the guards. As for the consequences of being arrested, we don't know if they will die or become disabled. 2 guests. The order of our Emerald Island is different from the outside world. You must not do anything out of line. Otherwise, once you are arrested by the guards, the consequences are not something you can bear. Our shopkeeper is not afraid of you buying on credit for this reason. All the shops on the island have to pay spirit stones to the guards. This also involves their own interests." Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching nodded slightly. In their minds, they already had some understanding of the guards. They were like the city guards, but their strength was much stronger than the city guards. A 5th level Purple Realm cultivator, in any place in the Shengxian continent, could do whatever they wanted. But here they must not offend the guards. One could imagine the strength of the guards. Then who are the people in the guards? Why can they become guards? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with doubt. The guards were so orderly, and everyone on the island had to obey the order. There should be a certain force behind them. It was impossible for them to be formed by themselves. The guards are from the 3 major forces of Penglai Island. Different islands are under the jurisdiction of different forces. Hearing the attendant's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's eyes suddenly brightened. "Little brother, please introduce us to the major forces of Penglai Island. We can also avoid them." As they were new here, it was most important to know which forces they could not offend. Not only that, until now, they still did not know which force Gao Hanchun belonged to. It would be best if they could find out more. The attendant was not surprised by Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's question. In fact, almost every cultivator who came to Penglai Island for the first time would ask this question. This was because this problem would affect their future development. If they were careless and offended someone from a major power, they would die without knowing why. On our Penglai Island, there are a total of 3 major powers. They are Penglai Palace, 100 Flower Gate, and Crimson Moon Sect. The Penglai Palace, as the name suggests, is located on the island of Penglai. The Penglai Palace is extremely powerful and has many disciples. The 100 Flowers Gate was located on the 100 Flowers Island. However, the 100 Flowers Gate specialized in medicine and was famous for their pills. However, they could not be underestimated because of this. They had an astonishing number of hired thugs. The Crimson Moon Sect was located on the Crimson Moon Island. These 3 islands were named after the forces. Furthermore, the 3 islands were not far from each other. It could be said that they balanced each other out. As for our Jade Island, It's called Jade Island because this island is rich in jade. Other than these three major forces, there was another force that no one could ignore, and that was the Golden Flame Auction House. Chapter 2954. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching nodded. In fact, no matter where it was, the power of an auction house could not be underestimated. Without sufficient strength and means, it was absolutely impossible to collect so many treasures. Moreover, if an auction house wanted to run well, it must have powerful strength to deter others. Otherwise, if there were too many people who did not abide by the rules, the auction house would naturally be unable to continue. No one would ignore an auction house that could do well on Penglai Island. In addition to the four most famous forces, there are many small forces on Penglai Island. However, there are too many of them. Every island has one. Even though I have lived here since I was a child, I am not very clear about many forces. After all, the changes on Penglai Island are too fast. Maybe a force was very powerful a few days ago, but after a few days, it will be replaced directly. When talking about these forces, the attendant seemed to be very indifferent. Obviously, it was because there were too many of these forces. Except for the four most feared forces, the other forces were really nothing. I wonder if you have heard of Gao Hanchun? Bailey Hongzhuang immediately asked. According to her estimation, this Gao Hanchun should not be a member of the four major forces. It was very likely that he was the leader of many small forces. In order to avoid the situation where the other party was in the dark, and they were in the light, they first had to have some understanding of Gao Hanchun. Only then could they be more careful when taking action in the future. Gao Hanchun. The attendant was slightly stunned. Why are you asking about him? When we were at the dock, we heard other teams talking about him. He seemed to be very powerful, so we asked out of curiosity. Bewitching's face revealed a very curious look, as if he wanted to know the gossip. Hearing this, the attendant also smiled. This kind of herd mentality was something that almost every newcomer would have. That Gao Hanchun is indeed a very famous person recently. However, he does not belong to the four major forces. He created his own force called the Heaven-Shaking Faction. In Penglai Island, other than the three major forces, the other forces can only be called a gang. However, the strength of this Heaven-Shaking Faction is indeed not to be underestimated. Recently, there have been many people talking about this Heaven-Shaking Faction, so it is not strange for you to hear about it. In that case, that Gao Hanchun is indeed very powerful. To be able to enjoy such an illustrious reputation on the Penglai Island, he is truly extraordinary. Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to exclaim in admiration, her expression full of yearning. The Heaven-Shaking Faction is not on our Emerald Island, but on Qingyan Island, which is quite a distance away from our Emerald Island. Speaking of the Heaven-Shaking Faction, I remember a piece of gossip I heard recently. If you're interested, I'll tell you about it. The more the attendant spoke, the more excited he became. Although ordinary people were usually protected by the guards, their status was still incomparable to cultivators. Even if he wanted to brag and show off, he didn't have much of a chance to do so. Only in front of newcomers like Bewitching would he be able to be so proud of himself. Of course I'm interested. Chapter 2955. It is precisely because of this matter that the people of Jintian faction went to many islands recently. There are also people of Jintian faction on our Emerald Island, in order to find the murderer. Speaking of which, the other party is really daring, even daring to kill the younger brother of Jintian faction's leader. However, it is said that the people of Jintian faction haven't found the existence of those people after searching for so long. I think that those people might not even dare to come to Penglai Island. If they are caught, only death awaits them. The waiter said while shaking his head. Obviously, this matter was already known to everyone. I don't know who is so daring. Do you know who the other party is? Bailey Hongzhuang asked, but deep in her eyes, a trace of sharpness quietly flashed. It seems that Gao Hanxia and his brother didn't say anything on this point. Gao Hanchun was really not an easy person to deal with. From the words of the waiter, It was clear that Jintian faction was very powerful among the many factions. Gao Hanshan actually sent the people of Jintian faction to various islands to find them. Obviously, he wouldn't give up until he caught them. The waiter shook his head. We don't know what they look like. We only know that there are 2 men and 2 women, and they are very young. Gao Hanshan left an image on his 2 younger brothers and saw the appearance of the 4 people. So recently, as long as it is a newcomer, they will be carefully checked. You 2 are also newcomers. Maybe tomorrow you will meet the people of Jintian faction. But as long as you answer truthfully, there should be no problem, as long as you don't offend them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen quietly looked at each other. It seems that they were lucky not to be discovered tonight, but they still can't escape the questioning of Jintian faction. However, at least they have a better understanding and can make more preparations. After getting enough information from the waiter left the room. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked to the window and looked at the pedestrians below. According to their estimation, it was about time for Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying to arrive at the restaurant. It was fine if the 2 of them were discovered as newcomers, but Wen Xiren and Shangguan Yingying absolutely could not be discovered. Otherwise, if the 4 newcomers stayed in the same inn, it would be easy to connect the dots. The 2 of them looked out the window for a moment and saw Xiren and Shangguan Yingying slowly walking over. Di Beichen immediately transmitted his voice to Xiren and Shangguan Yingying, telling them what spirit stones were, so that they wouldn't be exposed when they checked into the inn later. Downstairs, Xiren nodded quietly after hearing Di Beichen's voice transmission, indicating that he understood. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen then closed the window. Not long after, someone knocked on the door. It was Shangguan Yingying and Xiren. What's the situation? When Xiren couldn't help but ask, were you also tracked on the way here? Di Beichen shook his head slightly. No, but I'm afraid we will meet the people of Jintian faction tomorrow. What do you mean? When Xiren was confused, they went ashore very smoothly and didn't meet anyone at all. They thought they could relax, but now looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying's expression, they felt that the situation was not as simple as they thought. Chapter 2956. So, the reason why we weren't blocked at the pier tonight was because the Shocking Heaven faction's people were guarding the square. When Xiren said in a deep voice, Di Beichen nodded. That's right. Any cultivator who just arrived here without spirit stones can't survive on this Punglai island. So they must go to the square to register and receive the spirit stones. They don't need to guard the pier at all, because there are many people coming and going at the pier. Even if the Shocking Heaven faction is quite strong, they can't stop so many people from dissatisfied. What's more, there are so many people coming and going at the pier. They can't judge who is a newcomer. But as long as someone goes to receive the spirit stones, they must be newcomers. Plus they don't have any background, they don't need to be afraid at all. When Xiren frowned, this Gao Hanshan is really smart. He has already calculated all of this. Isn't it very troublesome? Fortunately, the 2 of you haven't been discovered. It's just me and Beichen. It shouldn't be too difficult to get through. The shopkeeper already knows that Beichen and I are newcomers today. So we must go to the square tomorrow to receive the spirit stones. Otherwise it will be more suspicious if we hide. The 2 of you simply don't need to receive the spirit stones. We will think of a way to get the spirit stones later. As long as the 4 of you don't appear together, it's reasonable to say that the Shocking Heaven faction is difficult to determine. Her clear and bright phoenix eyes flashed with wisdom. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about the situation in front of her, and already had some plans in her heart. Shangguan Yingying nodded. Hongzhuang is right, let's do it, but the 2 of you have to be more careful tomorrow. Don't worry, although Gao Hanshan hates us to the bone, the people he sent to the Emerald Island are just ordinary people. As long as we are careful, it won't be difficult to get through. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Even if they were heavily guarded now, it wouldn't make them panic. I also don't believe that those guys are so smart. Let's go to the square tomorrow and see the situation. The tension on Xiren's face dissipated a little. I'll go order some wine and dishes, and see how the wine and dishes on Punglai Island taste. Speaking of which, It's all thanks to the spirit stones in Gao Hanshe's Qingkuan bag. There are more than 200 pieces. At least we don't need to worry for a short time. These spirit stones are used to help cultivators cultivate. It's because every cultivator needs it, Penglai Island's currency. We should find a way to get more spirit stones, as soon as possible. Di Beichen's voice was slightly heavy. This spirit stone was a great weapon to improve their cultivation. Other things were not what they were most worried about right now. What they were most worried about was that their cultivation was not enough. In such a situation, they simply can't fight with others. SSDST. If that was the case, there would be endless troubles. If he wanted to get rid of this weakness, he had to raise his cultivation as soon as possible. Unfortunately, to advance from the 3rd level of the Purple Realm to the 5th level of the Purple Realm was definitely not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. During this period of time, they had to be extra careful and avoid conflicts with others. Chapter 2957. The four of them looked at each other. With their status, they had never worried about money. They never thought that after coming to Penglai Island, they would experience the feeling of poverty. This feeling of being unable to make ends meet really made them feel a little helpless. We'll think of a way to solve this problem tomorrow. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Although we don't need gold coins here. Dan pills are hard currency no matter what. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen and the other two's gazes fell on her. Speaking of which, the three of them were all cultivators. It was indeed a very difficult thing for them to earn spirit stones. However, with a genius alchemist like Bailey Hongzhuang, earning spirit stones would not be so difficult. Alchemists, those were the rich among the rich. We have prepared a lot of pills. If it doesn't work, we'll exchange them for some spirit stones. Di Beichen said slowly. However, the value of spirit stones here is very high. I'm afraid that the amount of spirit stones we can exchange for will not be too much. Bailey Hongzhuang came to Penglai Island. It was naturally very important for her to improve her cultivation. How could she spend all her time on alchemy? Forget it. We'll take it one step at a time. We'll find a way. Xiren waved his hand. A relaxed expression appeared between his eyebrows. If there's really no way to earn spirit stones, then how did the cultivators on Penglai Island survive? Haha, that makes sense. Di Beichen laughed heartily. It was meaningless to worry too much. Once they had a better understanding of Penglai Island, there would be a way. I'll go order some food and wine first. The most important thing is to fill our stomachs. With that, Xiren and Shangguan Yingying walked out of the house and went downstairs to order food and wine. After the food and wine were sent to Xiren's house, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen entered Xiren's room. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen went to the square of the Emerald Island under the guidance of the shopkeeper. During the day, Emerald Island was even more lively than at night. Pedestrians could be seen everywhere, but all of them were cultivators. Walking on the streets, Bailey Hongzhuang exclaimed inwardly when she sensed the elemental energy waves emitted from the bodies of the pedestrians. If the people of Penglai Island appeared in the outside world at the same time, it would cause a huge commotion in the Shengxian continent. It was this feeling that made Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen nervous. For the sake of their loved ones, they had to increase their strength. The people here were enough to threaten the existence of Tiangang sect. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen arrived at the square, they saw a huge square sitting on the flat ground. The whole square was white. At a glance, it looked very clean, simple, and practical. There were 4 stages in this square. Although it was the first time that Bailey Hongzhuang came to this square, she could roughly guess that these 4 stages were fighting stages. In other words, it was likely to be a place for life and death battles. If there was a big grudge between cultivators, it was very likely that they would settle it on these stages. At the same time, it was also a place for everyone to witness. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen did not stay in the square for too long. Instead, they went directly to a building next to the square. Chapter 2958. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked in, 2 people in a tea house outside the square looked at each other. and couldn't help but put down their teacups. Their eyes flashed with a touch of light. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked into the house together. It was different from what they had imagined. The furnishings in the house were very ordinary and didn't give off a grand feeling. According to the waiter, the registration of the cultivator's information and the first set of spirit stones were given. This was jointly organized by the 4 major forces of Penglai Island. The purpose was to let the new cultivators better adapt to the environment of Penglai Island and at the same time leave behind some good fortune. In this way, all the new cultivators had received help from the 4 major forces. At least, they would feel grateful to the 4 major forces. Therefore, in Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's imagination, this place should be very bright and spacious. However, it seemed to be just an ordinary place now. The most important thing was that there was only one old man inside. At this moment, his eyes were half closed as if he had fallen asleep. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked in front of the old man and called softly, "Senior?" Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the old man who seemed to have fallen asleep slowly opened his eyes. He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen indifferently and said casually, "Newcomers?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, "Yes." The old man slowly took out the banknotes from the drawer and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. "Name?" Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Just when they were about to say their names, the old man's voice sounded again. "Don't think too much. Just say your real name. The news here will not be known by anyone outside. Even the people from the 4 major forces won't know." As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but be stunned. Their eyes flashed with deep surprise. If it was said that outsiders did not know about this situation, they would believe it. However, this place was originally built by the 4 great forces, so how could they not know about this news? The old man's words were simply too outrageous. However, the old man clearly did not intend to continue explaining. He merely swept his turbid gaze across Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Mingya, as if saying that it was up to them whether they believed him or not. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the old man in front of him. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen." Hearing this, the old man's hand that was recording Bailey Hongzhuang's name paused. He looked up at Di Beichen and asked, "Your surname is Di?" "That's right." Di Beichen nodded. "Is there a problem?" The old man carefully sized up Di Beichen. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. He then shook his head and said, "Nothing." Seeing this, although Di Beichen felt that it was a little strange, he did not continue kissing. It was obvious that the old man did not intend to say anything. It was probably because his surname was a little strange. After recording the names, the old man took out 2 Qingquan bags from the drawer and placed them on the table. 100 spiritual stones for each person. Take this manual and you may leave. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man closed his eyes again. Nothing changed, just like before Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen arrived. Chapter 2959. Even though the other party had a lazy look on his face the entire time, since they had taken something useful from this place, they naturally needed to thank him. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen felt that the old man's words were too strange. They could faintly sense that this seemingly lethargic old man was not an ordinary person. This was because when he had mentioned the 4 great authorities, there was no trace of reverence on his face. On the contrary, there was a sense of indifference. The hidden meaning behind this was rather complicated. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were about to turn around and leave, the old man opened his eyes once again. "Young people, since you've arrived on Penglai Island, it would be best for you to head to the Demon Abyss as soon as possible." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen paused in their footsteps. Their hearts were filled with astonishment, as they could not understand why the old man would suddenly say such a thing. However, the old man's next words caused their hearts to jump out of their chests. In this place, the Demon Abyss is the most convenient place to hide one's identity. If you want to hide your identity elsewhere, it won't be that easy. The old man's voice was low and hoarse. His voice was not very loud, but it sounded like he was talking in his sleep. However, his words hammered heavily into Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's hearts. Almost as soon as they heard these words, their hearts churned with perilous waves. They've been seen through. This old man must have seen through their identities. Otherwise he would never have said such a thing. However, ever since they had entered this place, they had not shown any signs of abnormality. However, they had been seen through just like that. This was just too terrifying. At this moment, they were certain that this old man was not in his twilight years. On the contrary, it was very likely that he was an old demon. That they had been seen through just like that had completely exceeded Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's expectations. They were even more worried that this old man might be related to the members of the Heaven Shaking Association. Otherwise, they would be in real trouble. I'm already a pile of old bones. You don't have to take it to heart. I'm just giving you a reminder on account of your manners. Let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen turned around and saw that the old man had once again laid down on the reclining chair. He had no intention of speaking at all. The two of them felt a wave of apprehension, but they knew that everything the old man had said was true. If this old man really wanted to harm them, he would have already acted. Demon Refining Abyss. This was also the place where Bailey Hongzhuang and the others planned to go. But now they only knew that Demon Refining Abyss was on Demon Refining Island, and it was still a long way from Emerald Island. However, if it was convenient for them to hide their identities there, then it was indeed a good place for them to go. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked out of the house, trembling with fear. It wasn't until they stood under the sun again that they breathed a sigh of relief. Let's go back first. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen. After the old man's words, their feelings were a little complicated. Most importantly, the old man's words made them realize that the situation here was not safe. Di Beichen looked around. The members of the Heaven Shaking Association were very likely to be nearby. It was just that he did not know when they would appear. Chapter 2960. Not long after Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked forward, two figures suddenly appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Both of them were about 35 years old, and their rough faces revealed a valiant aura. The moment they saw these two people, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had already guessed that these two guys must be the people sent by the Jintian faction to find them. What are your names? The two men looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Their tone was cold, and their attitude was not polite at all. It was as if they did not put Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen in their eyes. They were just newcomers. In fact, every newcomer was easy to bully, so the two men did not take them seriously at all. Di Beichen frowned at the two men and said, "Who are you? Why are you blocking our way? We are people from the Jintian faction. We were ordered by the faction leader to find a few newcomers here to confirm your identity. Tell me your names." Di Chun. Di Bei. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang was dressed as a man, and her identity was Di Beichen's younger brother. So she simply used the first two words of Di Beichen's name. When she was receiving the spirit stones before, because the old man said that it would not be leaked, Bailey Hongzhuang said her real name. It was not a rare thing for a woman to dress up as a man on Penglai Island, but beautiful women often choose to dress up as men in order to avoid some harassment. Of course, when you have enough strength to protect yourself, there is no need to continue to disguise. Hearing this, the two men nodded and did not take Di Beichen and Di Beichen's name to heart. When did you come to Emerald Island? Yesterday. When you came from the outside, did you see a team of 4 people? The man asked immediately. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen shook their heads together and said, "No." Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's movements were so consistent, the two men also believed a little. If one nodded and the other shook his head, then the problem would be big. The faction leader asked us to find 4 people. There are only 2 of them. It should not be them. The slightly fat man said slowly, his attention no longer on Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they could avoid this layer of investigation, they could rest. They could rest assured. However, the skinny man shook his head and reprimanded the chubby man. "Are you stupid? If you know that there are people's people, you will come out with 4 people." The gang leader had said that anyone who came in recently was a suspect and had to be carefully investigated. If they missed the opportunity, they would be severely punished. What's more, do you want the reward? After the thin man's reminder, the fat man's eyes lit up and said, "You are right. If these two people are really them, then we will be rich." "Can we go?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She had a faint premonition that if they continued to stay here, the situation would become more and more troublesome. "Eat these 2 true chi pills, then answer our questions again." The thin man opened his right hand. There were 2 perfectly round pills in his palm. When she heard the words true chi pill, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly changed and her heart thumped. She did not expect that Penglai Island would have true chi pills. Chapter 2961. Jinqi pill, as the name suggests, is related to sincerity. As long as you take the Jinqi pill, no matter what the other party asks you, you can only tell the truth. You can't tell any lies at all. Although the level of this Jinqi pill is not high, it has a great effect, so it was widely used thousands of years ago. Bailey Hongzhuang has never heard of anyone using Jinqi pill since she transmigrated. She only thought that this Jinqi pill has been lost. She didn't expect to see Jinqi pill again in this Penglai Island. It was really beyond her expectation. If they took the Jinqi pill, it was tantamount to completely exposing their identity. If she was prepared, she could have a way to deal with it. But she didn't think that Jinqi pill would appear at all. Naturally, she had no way to deal with it at this moment. "What is Jinqi pill? I don't want to eat it." Bailey Hongzhuang frowned, and a look of refusal appeared on her face. However, this behavior did not make the 2 people feel strange. In fact, not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but anyone who was suddenly forced to eat the pill would not be willing. Eating the Jinqi pill is not bad for you. It is just to test whether what you said just now is true or not, the lean man said. Although Bewitching didn't know what the use of this Jinqi pill was, he knew that this Jinqi pill was definitely not something good when he noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's expression. "You just take out something, and you want us to eat it. Even if we are new here and don't know enough about many things, you are bullying us too much." Bewitching's face was filled with a sullen expression. He was about to resist, because the other party's actions had crossed his bottom line. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were about to resist, the lean man and the chubby man couldn't help but look at each other with a complicated expression. In fact, they also knew that this approach was indeed a bit difficult. But Jinqi pill really had no harm. "I can assure you that this true chi pill does not have any harm. You may not know this in the outside world, but in our Penglai Island, this is a method that is often used," the slightly plump man explained. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's faces were always full of rejection, and they were not willing to listen to their explanations. Bailey Hongzhuang was also secretly anxious. It seemed that they had underestimated the importance of Gao Hanxia and Gao Hanxiu to Gao Hanxiu. In order to capture the 4 of them, Gao Hanxian didn't even hesitate to use true chi pills on a large scale. Just from this point alone, one could see many things. Based on their performance, it was likely that they would not be allowed to leave unless they consumed the true chi pill. In this way, the other party would definitely suspect them even more, and their identities would naturally be exposed. Speaking of which, this was truly a troublesome matter. "If you want to eat, you can eat by yourselves. We won't eat," Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's stubbornness, the lean man's face also showed a trace of impatience, and his low voice also became a bit more threatening. "I am not asking for your opinion now. If I ask you to eat, you have to eat. Otherwise, you will be making an enemy of our entire heaven-shaking faction. You have to think carefully. What heaven-shaking faction? We have never heard of it," Bewitching said coldly. "You 2 guys who don't know anything naturally haven't heard of it." Chapter 2962. The commotion caused by Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 had attracted the attention of many people. Almost everyone recognized that the 2 were from the Shocking Heaven faction. It's the Shocking Heaven faction again. Recently, the Shocking Heaven faction's movements have been too big. It makes people feel very uncomfortable. The current strength of the Heaven-Shaking faction is indeed very powerful. But the Heaven-Shaking faction is not the only faction on the Punglai Island. Right now they are acting so arrogantly, as if they are the only faction. That's because the two brothers of the Shocking Heaven faction were killed. Gao Hanshun is now angry from embarrassment. If he doesn't find the murderer, he will have no place to hide his face. These two newcomers are really unlucky. However, recently, as long as they are new cultivators, they will all be found by the Shocking Heaven faction. Everyone just treat it as a joke. Previously, I saw two newcomers on other islands who refused to be interrogated by the Shocking Heaven faction. As a result, they were directly killed. TSK. Everyone discussed while watching the show. For them, this matter had nothing to do with them. Anyway, it was very interesting to watch a show. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 and the Lean Man's group of 4 were still confronting each other. The atmosphere was getting more and more tense. Bewitching, once you take this true Qi Dan, you will definitely be telling the truth. Even we can't control it. So you must not take it. Bailey Hongzhuang transmitted to Bewitching. They must think of a countermeasure. Hearing this, Bewitching also understood. He also felt very helpless about the existence of the true Qi Dan. Although there are only these two guys here, I reckon that there are definitely more than these two people in the Shocking Heaven faction on Emerald Island. We can't fight recklessly. Once our strength is exposed, it will be more troublesome. We can only run. Bewitching said in a deep voice. That's the only way now. Later, we will pretend to take the medicine, and then take the opportunity to escape. With the speed of the two of us, we should be able to shake them off. As long as we find a secluded corner, we can enter the chaos ring and disguise ourselves before coming out. It won't be easy for them to recognize us, Bailey Hongzhuang said. The two of them confirmed the answer with a single glance. Fortunately, they had the existence of a heaven-defying divine tool like the chaos ring. Using it to avoid being tracked was practically the best method. I say, do you two understand? If you don't eat it, we'll have to put in some effort to make you swallow it. The lean man's voice was full of threat, and his expression was a little more ferocious. With so many people paying attention to them, if they continued to delay like this, it would only weaken their heaven-shaking faction's face. As he spoke, the lean man's 6th-level purple realm aura erupted. Obviously, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang and Gu Ruoyan did not listen to him, he would immediately take action. At most, you two have just reached the 5th level of the purple realm. You better think carefully. If you let the two of us do it, I'm afraid it won't be as simple as eating a pill. If you lose an arm or a leg, or even lose your life, don't regret it. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's faces flashed with a trace of fear, as if they were threatened by the two's strength and words, and their expressions became hesitant. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.